Iliara's boots clicked lightly against the polished crystal floor of the Ziran palace, a sound that echoed faintly in the grand hall. The light from the high, iridescent windows shimmered off the walls in colors she had no names for. Every corner seemed alive, humming softly with energy that was neither mechanical nor natural, but something in between. She paused for a moment, letting her eyes sweep across the hall. She had imagined this moment for months, walking among the Zirans, the alien race that humanity had just begun to meet. She had read countless reports, studied their culture, and trained in alien diplomacy, yet nothing had prepared her for the sheer scale and elegance of their world. Iliara had been chosen not only for her knowledge but for her humanity. The Zirans were known for their intelligence, but their culture valued hierarchy and tradition above all else. Humans were a novelty here, beings who had survived the harshness of their own planet through ingenuity, compassion, and boldness. Iliara had been briefed repeatedly that any sign of weakness or indecision could mean the end of the audience before it even began. She squared her shoulders and stepped forward. The main chamber of the palace was enormous. Alien courtiers floated slightly above the ground, their bodies shimmering like liquid light. Their faces, elongated and smooth, displayed expressions that humans would call unreadable, though Iliara had learned to interpret subtle shifts in hue and movement as emotion. At the far end of the hall, seated upon a throne that seemed to be grown rather than built, was the queen herself. She radiated authority, her presence so commanding that even the courtiers seemed to pause in awe. Iliara's mission was simple yet delicate. She was here to represent humanity in formal talks, but her instincts told her that diplomacy alone would not be enough. She had to demonstrate that humans were trustworthy, capable, and above all, morally upright. She had rehearsed countless ways to convey this without words, through gestures, tone, and demeanor. The audience began with the usual formalities. Iliara bowed carefully, mindful of the gestures that showed respect without mimicking alien customs in a way that might be seen as disrespectful. The queen nodded, a subtle shift in color across her face indicating acknowledgement. The court murmured softly in harmonic tones, the sound rising and falling like a gentle wind through reeds. Iliara listened carefully, picking out patterns and rhythms. Every movement, every sound mattered here. And then, without warning, everything changed. A sudden ripple of motion spread across the chamber. A small figure darted from behind a group of Ziran advisors, slipping past guards who seemed momentarily frozen in surprise. The courtiers' whispers grew sharper, more anxious. All eyes turned toward the intrusion. Iliara's heart leapt. The figure was tiny, smaller than any Ziran she had seen before, its body glowing faintly with a soft internal light. It was the child of the queen herself. Iliara could see it now, trembling as it moved, eyes wide and seeking something, someone. And then, in a move that seemed almost instinctive, the child ran straight to her. Time slowed for Iliara. The child pressed against her legs and hid behind her, tiny fingers gripping the folds of her robe. The hall fell utterly silent, save for the soft hum of the palace. Gasps echoed faintly from the courtiers. Even the queen seemed startled, her face shifting through a cascade of colors that Iliara could only guess reflected shock, confusion, and perhaps fear. Iliara knelt slowly, careful not to frighten the child. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice calm and steady. "You're safe." She extended a hand gently, resting it on the child's shoulder. The child flinched slightly but did not retreat. Instead, it clung more tightly, as if sensing that humans could be trusted in ways the court could not yet imagine. The silence in the chamber was deafening. The courtiers whispered urgently, and some guards began moving cautiously, unsure whether to intervene. Iliara realized that she was the center of attention, not because she had done anything remarkable, but because she had done exactly what no one else had expected. She had become a refuge. Slowly, the queen spoke, her voice a melodic vibration that seemed to resonate through the chamber. "Iliara," she said, each syllable carefully measured, "you have taken the child into your care. Explain yourself." Instead, she tilted her head, watching the child, who now peeked shyly from behind Iliara's knees. The courtiers' murmurs grew louder, some whispering accusations, others speculation. Iliara felt the weight of their attention, but she remained composed. She had faced high-stakes negotiations before, but nothing quite like this. The child, sensing no threat, took a small step forward, resting a hand lightly on Iliara's arm. The gesture was simple, yet it carried immense meaning. The courtiers gasped again, and even some of the queen's advisors stiffened. Iliara realized that the child had made a choice, an instinctive trust in a human being rather than in the alien court that surrounded them. Finally, the queen's face shifted to a softer hue. "You understand the risks, do you not?" she asked, her tone calmer but still layered with authority. "The palace is not a place for unprotected children. Sometimes safety is found in unexpected hands." The child, Kiri, had hidden behind her for a reason, something deeper than mere fear. Something in the palace threatened the child in ways that humans might understand better than the rigidly ordered court. As the formal audience continued, Iliara led Kiri gently by the hand to a small alcove near the hall's edge, far enough to offer safety but close enough that she could participate in the proceedings if necessary. The child's wide eyes roamed the chamber, curious yet cautious. "Are they going to hurt me?" the child whispered softly, her voice musical but trembling. "They won't hurt you," Iliara assured her. "Not as long as we stay smart and careful." And humans, she realized, had the potential to change this palace, this empire, through understanding and intelligence, not through force. Minutes passed, and the courtiers began to resume their formalities, though their eyes kept darting toward the child and the human who had become a shield. Iliara observed them quietly, noting how even in a culture so rigid, the unexpected could create ripples of change. She understood that empathy, courage, and calm reasoning were as powerful as any weapon. Finally, the audience began to move toward the formal discussions. The queen motioned for Iliara to follow, and the child stepped closer, peeking out from behind her. Iliara lowered her hand to offer reassurance, and Kiri brushed against it, a silent acknowledgement of the bond forming between them. As they walked through the shimmering halls, Iliara reflected on the enormity of the situation. She was a human in a palace that had never before seen one of her kind in such proximity to its royalty. Yet the child's instinctive trust had opened a door that no amount of protocol or etiquette could have. Humanity's unique strength, she realized, was not in their technology or numbers, but in their ability to connect, to understand, and to act with moral courage even in the face of uncertainty. By the time they reached the first secluded garden within the palace, Kiri had begun to relax, allowing Iliara to guide her hand along the smooth petals of alien flora that shimmered with inner light. The garden was quiet, a private corner untouched by the rigid order of the court. Here, away from the murmuring eyes, Iliara could speak freely. "Why did you hide?" she asked gently. The child looked down, her glow dimming slightly. I didn't trust them," she admitted. "They talk and smile, but sometimes their words are traps. I needed to find someone who wouldn't trick me. Sometimes it's the one your instincts tell you." This was why humans survived, thrived, and sometimes even led in ways others could not imagine. Their courage to act, their wisdom to listen, and their willingness to protect even when it was inconvenient or dangerous. As they returned to the main hall, Iliara held Kiri's hand firmly but gently. The courtiers watched in silence, and the queen's expression had softened. Iliara knew the day's events would be discussed and debated long after they left the hall. Yet for now, she had shown that humans could inspire trust, courage, and hope, qualities that even the most powerful palace could not ignore. And in the quiet of that immense chamber, as Kiri walked beside her, Iliara realized that this was only the beginning of a story that would test the limits of human intelligence, empathy, and bravery, but also prove, in ways both subtle and profound, that humanity was capable of extraordinary things, even in a world as alien as this. Iliara led Kiri through the grand corridors of the palace, her mind racing with questions. The child's sudden appearance and instinctive trust had changed everything. Even though the court was observing every move, Iliara felt a strange calm. Humans thrived in moments of uncertainty, and this was one of those times. The child clung to her side, small fingers wrapping tightly around hers. Kiri's glow pulsed softly with each step, reflecting both curiosity and fear. "Why did you hide behind me?" Iliara asked gently, careful not to startle her. I didn't trust anyone else," Kiri admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "They all know too much about the palace. I didn't know who was really honest." Humans had learned long ago that trust was rare and precious, and it could change everything. "Sometimes," she said, "the right choice is the one no one expects. You chose wisely." The alien flora swayed without wind, their colors shifting like gentle flames. Kiri's eyes widened as she took it all in. "This is where I come when I want to think," Kiri said, a hint of pride in her voice. "It's safe here. Most of the palace doesn't know about it." Kiri returned it, though timidly, still unsure of humans but willing to learn. The child hesitated before speaking again. I I think something is happening. The advisors, they are planning things. I don't know what, but I know it isn't for me. Yet she knew that humans had a way of solving problems not through force, but through understanding and cleverness. We'll figure it out, she said firmly. We just need to be smart. For now, we will stay together. She felt the weight of the moment. This trust was fragile, yet it was the beginning of something important, a human-alien partnership built on respect, empathy, and intelligence. The two of them explored the garden, careful to avoid the main corridors where the court's attention could shift suddenly. Liara noticed that even the plants seemed almost aware of them, the colors and movements subtly responding to their presence. Kiri laughed softly at the way her own glow reflected in the petals, and Liara felt a rare warmth in the midst of the palace's cold elegance. After some time, Kiri led Liara to a hidden path within the garden. The path was narrow and winding, lined with tall, luminous plants that created a soft tunnel of light. "This is where I come when I want to hide," Kiri whispered. "It's my secret place. No one can follow me here. Don't leave anything out." This was more than politics. It was a challenge that required subtlety and diplomacy. "We won't let that happen," she said. "Not through force. We'll use wisdom and planning. We'll notice patterns, we'll find clues, and we'll use them to protect you." Every detail mattered here, and she was determined to notice them all. As they reached the edge of the garden, Iliara paused. "We need to understand the advisors, their plans, their motives. If we know what they want, we can act before it becomes dangerous. They whisper there often." Humans had a reputation among alien civilizations not for strength, but for ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. Here, in the hidden gardens of the Ziran palace, she would demonstrate exactly that. Over the next hours, they moved cautiously through the palace, using secret passages and quiet corners to watch the advisors. Iliara observed everything, the subtle gestures, the changes in glow, the patterns of speech. The child's instincts were sharp, and together they began to piece together the advisors' intentions. It became clear that the advisors were planning to isolate Kiri, to limit her choices and control her future. They spoke in coded phrases, unaware that the human and the child were quietly noting every detail. Iliara's mind raced, thinking of ways to counter their plans without confrontation, without force. "We need to create options," she whispered to Kiri. "Not by fighting them, but by showing the queen the truth in ways she cannot ignore. We can do it together." "You were very brave today," Iliara said. "Not just in hiding, but in trusting me. That is the first step toward changing what's happening here. We act with courage, thought, and empathy. And when we combine those things, even the most powerful places can change." As night fell over the palace, Iliara walked Kiri to her private chamber, a small room carved into the palace walls that overlooked a courtyard filled with glowing plants. "Rest here tonight," she said. "Tomorrow we begin planning, step by step, carefully, wisely." "I will," Iliara assured her. "And together we will face whatever comes, not with force, but with intelligence, trust, and courage. That is how humans survive, and that is how we will protect you." The child's instinctive trust had opened a door that no formal audience could have. And Iliara knew that the palace, with all its traditions and power, would never be the same. She paused in the corridor, listening to the soft hum of the palace at night. Even in a civilization far older and more advanced than humanity, the qualities that made humans unique, courage, empathy, and clever thinking, were noticed and valued in ways that could shape history. Iliara smiled to herself. The first step had been taken. The human and the child were together, and together they would navigate the mysteries, challenges, and intrigues of the Ziran palace. The advisors might plot, the court might whisper, but one truth was clear. Humanity had a place here, and it would shine, not through power, but through wisdom, trust, and the quiet courage to do what was right. And with Kiri at her side, Iliara knew that this was only the beginning of a story that would test the limits of both human and Ziran understanding, but would also prove, in subtle yet powerful ways, that humanity could inspire, protect, and lead without a single act of violence. The morning light poured through the translucent walls of the palace garden, scattering soft colors across the glowing plants. Iliara moved quietly, careful not to wake the child she had been guarding. Kiri lay on a bench wrapped in a light blanket, her small hands tucked beneath her chin. Despite the soft rise and fall of her breathing, Iliara could sense the child's mind was already active, thinking, planning, wondering. That was the nature of Ziran children. She had learned, Curiosity burned as brightly as their soft internal glow. Iliara sat beside her quietly for a few moments, considering their next step. Yesterday had been only the first movement in a long and delicate game. The advisors were clever and subtle, and if they were already plotting to control Kiri, Iliara knew they would be watching, listening, and waiting. Humans often relied on brute strength to solve problems, but here in this alien palace, she would need patience, observation, and careful strategy. Kiri stirred, stretching her small arms. "Are we going to the hall again today?" she asked, her voice hesitant but hopeful. "Not yet," Iliara said gently. "Today we watch and learn. Understanding the palace, its people, and the advisors is the key. The more we know, the better we can protect you without anyone realizing it. We notice what others don't, and we think carefully about what it means." She helped Iliara move quietly through the palace corridors, past rooms filled with holographic displays of alien history, and through areas where light itself seemed to bend and shift in ways humans could barely comprehend. Iliara noticed how Kiri instinctively guided her around guards, courtiers, and servants, always staying out of view. The child's instinctive understanding of the palace was astonishing. Finally, they reached a quiet observation point overlooking the hall near the palace archives, the very place Kiri had mentioned the advisors often gathered. Iliara crouched behind a screen of translucent crystal, and Kiri's small body pressed against hers. Together, they watched as a group of advisors entered the hall, speaking in low harmonic tones that carried layers of meaning humans were only beginning to understand. Iliara's mind worked quickly, translating gestures, shifts in color, and subtle inflections into a coherent picture. The advisors were discussing the child's future, her movements, education, and alliances. Their words suggested manipulation and control, not care. Yet there was no malice in their tone, only a belief that they knew what was best for the Empire. That was a vulnerability Iliara could exploit. Humans had often thrived in situations where others believed themselves unquestionably right. "They think they can control you," Iliara whispered to Kiri. "But they don't understand humans, and they don't understand you. That gives us an advantage. They won't even know we are protecting you." Humans had always excelled in these areas, turning intelligence and creativity into powerful tools. After hours of careful observation, Kiri leaned closer to Iliara. "They are planning something soon," she said, her voice a whisper. "I heard them mention the council meeting." The council meeting was a formal assembly of the palace's most powerful figures, and decisions made there would carry immense weight. If the advisors intended to act during the meeting, they might try to isolate Kiri or influence the queen in ways that could endanger her. Iliara knew they had to act, but the key was timing. They would need evidence, insight, and a clever plan to intervene indirectly. "We will go," Iliara said quietly, "but carefully. We won't be noticed, and we will make sure the truth is seen before any harm can come to you. We can move without anyone seeing us." Kiri led Iliara through corridors that twisted like ribbons of light, past chambers filled with alien artifacts and history that seemed almost alive. Each step was a lesson for Iliara, a deeper understanding of Ziran culture, architecture, and psychology. She learned how courtiers signaled loyalty, fear, and suspicion through subtle changes in color and movement. Every observation was another tool in their growing strategy. When evening approached, Iliara decided to share a small lesson with Kiri. "Humans have a saying," she said quietly as they rested in the hidden garden again. "Knowledge is power. But not all power comes from strength. Understanding, timing, and trust are just as important. Today, we learned about the advisors. Tomorrow, we will use that knowledge. The palace may be full of power and tradition, but one well-placed idea can change the course of events without a single shout or strike. You notice everything." Iliara realized that the key to protecting Kiri would be to show the queen the truth indirectly, allowing her to act without openly challenging the advisors until the right moment. Humans had a talent for strategy that combined ethics, observation, and timing. That talent would guide them here. Kiri began to contribute ideas of her own. "If we leave small signs, things only the queen would notice, she will see the truth before anyone can hide it," she suggested. Iliara's eyes lit up. The child's intuition was remarkable. "Yes," she said, "and we can guide those signs subtly without revealing ourselves. Humans and Zirans together can make this work." Small markers, subtle arrangements of objects, and careful timing created a trail that would lead the queen's attention to the advisor's plan without raising suspicion. Every action was deliberate, precise, and humane. Violence was unnecessary. This was about intelligence, empathy, and influence, qualities humans had long relied upon to survive and thrive. As night fell, Kiri finally allowed herself a moment of rest. She curled up on a bench, her small glow fading slightly as she drifted into sleep. Iliara watched over her, thinking about the palace, the advisors, and the queen. Humans had a way of seeing solutions where others saw obstacles. That perspective, combined with courage and ethical action, would make the difference. Iliara reflected on the lessons of the past days. Humans had faced countless challenges on Earth, from natural disasters to conflicts and political intrigue. Every challenge had required observation, thought, and empathy. And now, here in the Ziran Palace, she was using the same human traits to protect a child, guide a queen, and influence an empire, without violence, without fear, only through understanding and cleverness. The palace hummed softly around her, and Iliara felt a quiet pride. Humanity had arrived not as conquerors, not as aggressors, but as thinkers, protectors, and allies. The child's trust had opened a door, and through it, humans would show that courage and intelligence were universal strengths. As she finally allowed herself to rest, Iliara knew that the next day would bring the council meeting, the moment where observation would turn into action. The advisors would reveal their intentions, and humans would reveal theirs, through subtlety, wisdom, and courage. She felt ready. Kiri's trust was a promise, and Iliara intended to honor it fully. Even in a palace older and more advanced than any human structure, the qualities that defined humanity, empathy, intelligence, and ethical courage, were powerful. They could influence outcomes, inspire trust, and create change. And tomorrow, Iliara would begin to show the palace just how powerful those qualities could be. For now, she sat quietly in the garden, watching the soft light ripple over the plants. The night was peaceful, and the child was safe. That was the first victory. The next would come through cleverness, patience, and trust, the human way. And in the quiet of the glowing garden, Iliara felt certain that together, she and Kiri could face anything the palace, or the advisors, might plan. The story of humanity within the Ziran Empire was only beginning, and it would be a story of courage, wisdom, and hope. The morning sun spilled across the palace halls in soft golden light, casting patterns that seemed to dance across the crystal floors. Iliara walked carefully beside Kiri, whose small glow pulsed softly in rhythm with her curiosity. Today was different. The council meeting was approaching, and Iliara knew the advisors intended to act. Their careful whispers, subtle shifts in color, and repeated routines over the past days had revealed everything she needed to know. They planned to isolate Kiri, to limit her influence, and to manipulate the queen into decisions that would control the child's future. Iliara's mind was already working on how to turn this to their advantage. Humans were not the strongest beings in the universe, but they had a unique talent, intelligence combined with moral courage. The palace could be a maze of power and tradition, but humans could navigate it with patience, observation, and subtle action. And today, she would begin to demonstrate just how effective that combination could be. Kiri walked quietly beside her, her small fingers brushing against Iliara's. "Will it work?" she asked, a trace of worry in her voice. "It will," Iliara said firmly. "We just have to be careful, smart, and patient. Nothing we do will harm anyone, but we will make sure the truth is seen." "That is all that matters." Courtiers and advisors moved through the chambers, each carrying their subtle signals of power and loyalty. Iliara noted the small details: who moved first, who watched whom, the faint changes in glow that indicated hidden alliances or private intentions. Every observation was a piece of the puzzle. Kiri leaned close and whispered, "This is where they will try to act. They will try to make the queen follow their plans without asking me." From this hidden vantage point, they could see the advisors gathering, preparing their plans. Iliara made mental notes, translating gestures, phrases, and subtle color shifts into an understanding of the strategies being discussed. The advisors believed themselves unseen, confident that their influence was secure. They underestimated humans. "Now we watch," Iliara said quietly. "And we prepare the signs that will make the queen notice. Yes, we will leave a trail that leads to the truth." Iliara whispered to Kiri, "We'll leave small things in their path, things that seem natural but point to the truth. Nothing will be obvious, nothing will be forced. The queen will see for herself." These were not signs of rebellion, but of careful observation, like breadcrumbs leading to clarity. As the council meeting began, Iliara observed the queen's reactions. She could see her scanning the room, her face shifting through subtle colors, reflecting thought, doubt, and curiosity. Iliara felt a thrill. Humans had often influenced outcomes through observation and clever guidance. Now that talent would shape the future of an alien empire without a single act of aggression. Minutes passed, each tense with anticipation. Kiri's small hand rested lightly on Iliara's, a silent signal of courage. Together they watched as the advisors attempted to sway the queen. Yet the markers they had left began to catch her attention. The crystal shifted slightly, the pattern of light reflected differently, and her gaze lingered longer than expected. "She notices," Kiri whispered, barely daring to breathe. "Yes," Iliara said softly, "and she will see the truth soon." Patience and intelligence were their tools, and the moment to act was approaching. Suddenly the queen stood, a subtle ripple passing through her form. The room seemed to hold its breath. She moved deliberately, her eyes tracing the small markers, her attention catching details the advisors had assumed would be overlooked. Her expression shifted, curiosity deepening into recognition. The advisors froze, sensing something unexpected. Iliara knew the moment had arrived. This was why humans observed carefully, why they combined intelligence with ethics. They had prepared the environment so the truth could emerge naturally without accusation or confrontation. Kiri's glow brightened slightly, a sign of relief and confidence. "It's working," she whispered. Iliara nodded. "Yes. Let the truth reveal itself. The queen will understand, and the advisors will have no choice but to follow reason." Her eyes shifted to Iliara, a silent acknowledgement of trust and understanding. The advisors tried to speak, but their words faltered. The queen had seen the truth, not through confrontation, but through observation and subtle guidance. Iliara felt a sense of pride. Humanity had proven that influence could be exercised through intelligence, ethics, and patience without violence or force. Kiri smiled slightly, her small form glowing with relief. "We did it," she whispered. "Yes," Iliara said. "And this is only the beginning. Humans have a way of thinking that allows them to solve problems without conflict. The palace, the advisors, even the queen, they are beginning to see it too." Her presence was calm, her colors soft and warm. She spoke in a voice that resonated through the hall, gentle yet filled with authority. "Iliara, your guidance has been invaluable. The child's trust in you has revealed truths we might have overlooked. You have shown that understanding and careful observation can accomplish more than force or intimidation ever could. Your Highness, humans have always believed that intelligence, patience, and empathy are our greatest strengths. Today, we demonstrated them together. Together, you and Iliara have proven that even the most intricate plans can be guided by honesty and cleverness, without harm." The palace had shifted subtly, not through confrontation, but through the quiet brilliance of human intellect and ethics. Kiri's small hand rested on Iliara's, a sign of gratitude and trust. "Thank you," she whispered. "I never thought I could feel safe here. We will navigate the palace together, step by step, using thought, patience, and wisdom. That is how humans face challenges." Humanity had arrived not as a conqueror, but as a guide and protector. The palace, with all its ancient traditions and authority, had begun to recognize the power of insight and empathy, the qualities humans had relied upon for centuries. By evening, the palace had grown quieter. Iliara and Kiri returned to the hidden garden, a place of calm and reflection. The child's glow pulsed gently as she explored the plants, her curiosity returning to its natural brightness. "You did well today," Iliara said, sitting beside her. "You followed your instincts, trusted wisely, and helped guide the queen's attention. That is remarkable for anyone, especially a child. You showed me how to think, watch, and act without fear." Iliara considered the question carefully. "Not always. Challenges will come, and some will be harder than today. But as long as we think carefully, act wisely, and trust in what is right, we can face anything." Humans had faced countless challenges on Earth, from storms to conflicts, and had survived through intelligence, courage, and empathy. Here, in a palace of light and tradition, the same qualities had safeguarded a child, guided a queen, and shifted the balance of influence without confrontation. Iliara allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. The next day would bring new challenges, but for now, they had achieved something extraordinary. They had shown that humans could make a difference not through power, but through thought, understanding, and careful action. And in that quiet, glowing garden, she knew that humanity's story within the Ziran Empire was becoming one of trust, insight, and courage. proof that intelligence and moral strength could shape worlds, and that even a small human could change the course of an alien empire through patience, wisdom, and heart. The palace was unusually quiet the next morning, as if it knew something significant was about to happen. Iliara and Kiri moved carefully through the corridors, their steps almost silent against the crystal floors. Today was the day when all their preparation, observation, and subtle strategy would pay off. The council meeting would reconvene, and the queen would finally address the advisors' schemes. Kiri clung to Iliara's hand, her glow soft but steady. "Are we ready?" she asked, her voice a mixture of excitement and nerves. Iliara smiled reassuringly. "Yes, we are ready. Today we will guide the queen to the truth, not through force, but through careful thought and observation. Humans have always solved challenges this way." The advisors looked confident, assuming their manipulations would go unnoticed. Iliara felt a familiar thrill. Humans had often succeeded where others underestimated them, and this was one of those moments. Kiri led Iliara to their hidden vantage point, a quiet alcove with a clear view of the council table. She whispered, "We will leave the markers again. The queen will notice them, like yesterday." The council meeting began. The advisors started speaking, their words flowing smoothly, confident that their plan to control Kiri and influence the queen would succeed. Yet, Iliara noticed subtle hesitation in their gestures and color shifts, signs that even they were beginning to doubt themselves. Humans had learned long ago that confidence often crumbles in the face of careful observation and quiet ingenuity. The queen, seated at the head of the table, observed the room. Iliara could see the moment when her attention caught on the subtle markers they had left. Her eyes lingered on a crystal slightly shifted from its usual position, a small arrangement of glowing plants that seemed to highlight the advisors' movements, and an object placed in a way that revealed the inconsistencies in their story. Slowly, the queen's expression changed, curiosity giving way to realization. "She sees it," Kiri whispered, gripping Iliara's hand tightly. "Yes," Iliara replied softly, "and soon the advisors will have nowhere to hide. The truth is coming quietly and clearly." The advisors tried to speak, but the queen raised a hand, a subtle command that silenced them without force. "Iliara," she said, her voice calm but resonant, "your guidance has led me to see what I might have overlooked. The plans presented by these advisors do not reflect the best interest of my child, nor the future of this palace. It is clear that careful observation and understanding reveal the truth more powerfully than mere authority." Humans, Iliara thought, often succeeded in this way, by noticing what others missed and acting with courage and ethics. The queen turned to Kiri, who stood nervously beside Iliara. "And you, my child, have shown wisdom beyond your years. You trusted rightly, and that trust has illuminated what was hidden. You have not only protected yourself, but also demonstrated how intelligence, patience, and courage can guide others." Humanity, once again, had shown that courage and intelligence could achieve more than force or authority. The queen addressed the council directly, her voice firm yet calm. "From this day forward, all plans regarding the child's future will be guided by wisdom, observation, and fairness. Manipulation and hidden control will no longer be tolerated. Let it be known that even the smallest insight can reveal the greatest truths." Humans had achieved what few could: resolution without conflict, influence without coercion, and respect earned through intelligence and integrity. After the council meeting, the queen approached Iliara and Kiri. Her presence radiated calm and appreciation. "Iliara, your actions have proven the value of humanity in ways I could not have imagined. You have shown courage, intelligence, and ethical clarity. The child's trust in you has guided not only her own safety, but also the perception of all who witness it. Humans are remarkable. The child's trust made it possible. Together, you and Iliara have changed the course of this palace, not through force, but through wisdom and care. There will be other challenges, but with courage, observation, and intelligence, we can face them all." Humans had demonstrated that influence did not require force, only understanding, cleverness, and moral courage. Kiri explored the palace with renewed confidence, her glow bright and steady. She had learned valuable lessons: observation, careful thinking, and the courage to trust wisely. She had also seen firsthand how humans approached challenges through patience, intelligence, and empathy. The combination had protected her and guided the queen to clarity without confrontation. Iliara watched her closely, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. Humanity had arrived in the Ziran Empire not as conquerors, but as thinkers, protectors, and allies. Their actions had shifted the perception of humans from mere visitors to valuable participants in a complex society. The palace, with all its tradition and authority, had begun to recognize the power of insight, trust, and ethical courage, qualities humans had relied upon for centuries. That evening, Iliara and Kiri returned to the hidden garden. The plants glowed softly, casting gentle light across their faces. The child's curiosity returned in full force as she examined the shifting colors, the delicate textures, and the subtle movements of the flora. "You did well today," Iliara said, sitting beside her. "You trusted wisely, observed carefully, and helped guide the queen to the truth. That is remarkable for anyone, especially a child. You showed me how to act carefully, think clearly, and trust wisely." "Not always," Iliara replied. "Challenges will come, and some will be harder than today. But as long as we think carefully, act wisely, and trust in what is right, we can face anything." Here, in the Ziran Palace, the same qualities had protected a child, guided a queen, and changed the course of influence without aggression or harm. The palace hummed softly around them, a testament to the ancient civilization that still had much to learn from humanity's unique strengths. Kiri's small glow pulsed steadily, a sign of curiosity, courage, and trust, the qualities that had guided them through the council and would continue to shape the future. Iliara reflected on everything that had happened. Humans had arrived as strangers, yet their approach, careful observation, ethical action, and courage had earned respect, trust, and influence. The palace would never be the same, and the child had grown in confidence and wisdom because of it. Humanity had proven once again that intelligence and moral strength were as powerful as any force or authority. As she walked through the quiet corridors, Iliara felt certain that this was only the beginning. The story of humans within the Ziran Empire was now one of trust, insight, and courage. They had changed perception not through dominance or aggression, but through thought, empathy, and careful action. And as she looked back at Kiri, her small hand glowing softly in the dim light, Iliara knew that together they could face any challenge the palace, or the galaxy, might bring. Humanity had arrived not to conquer, but to guide, protect, and inspire. The story of the child who hid behind a human would become a story of courage, intelligence, and hope, a story that proved once again that even the smallest act of trust and careful thinking could change the course of history. Iliara smiled quietly. The palace was safe, the queen was informed, and the child was protected. All without a single act of violence, all through the quiet power of observation, empathy, and human ingenuity. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but they were ready. Humans had shown their strength, not through power, but through heart, intelligence, and moral courage. In the Ziran Empire, as in humanity's own world, those qualities were stronger than any force, more enduring than any authority, and capable of shaping the future in ways that others could only begin to understand. Kiri leaned against Iliara, her glow soft and steady. "I feel safe," she said simply. "You are safe," Iliara replied. "And together we will face whatever comes next." Step by step, wisely and bravely, as humans always do. The child had hidden behind a human, and in doing so had found not only safety, but a new way forward for the palace, the queen, and herself.